Hello, hello, hello. I'm Dr. Peoples, and welcome to Cocaine in My Cookies. We're going to jump right into it. The way I do my presentations, I'll zoom in and out because I kind of I feel like I'm talking to you and I can see myself. So I'll go in and out. And yes, so this is Cocaine in My Cookies: How to Beat Sugar Addiction for Good Without Depriving Yourself. This program that I've put together, this course that I've put together, Cocaine in My Cookies, has been a labor of love. I've been working with people for quite a long time, helping them change their behaviors, help them beat sugar addiction, and much more. But just a little bit about me. I'm Dr. Peoples. One of the things that I do is I help people get to the root cause of their symptoms. I say that I help people feel 10 years younger and live 10 years longer. And I do that by helping people figure out what is at the root of their whatever symptoms they may have. And in this case, sugar addiction, there's definitely something at the root of that. And rather than just throwing diets at it and pills and supplements at it, there is a strategy. And so today I want to talk a little bit about that strategy. So the first thing is, are you addicted to sugar? And that's, an interesting question, only because most people already know that they're addicted to sugar, but there is really actually no diagnosis of sugar addiction. And even though there's no diagnosis, if I talk to, 100 people, 70 of them will say, oh, I'm definitely addicted to sugar. And the reason that is because sugar is just as addictive as cocaine, if not more. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to it. But when you talk about addiction, we're not just talking about your, psychological or perceived notion that you have an addiction to sugar. It's actually biochemically driven. And the reason why this is important is because once you understand that, then that's how you address it. That's how you get to the root. You start to address the chemical reasons why you're addicted as opposed to the psychological. So here, just to start off, and you can give a thumbs up or anything like that if any of these ring true for you. So I eat certain foods despite them causing me physical or mental harm. When I start eating certain foods, I tend to eat more than I planned. I continue to eat certain foods even though I'm no longer hungry. I get agitated, anxious, or have other physical symptoms when I cut down or stop eating certain foods. I eat certain foods in excess to counteract negative emotions or to increase pleasure, stress, depression, help you relax. I have a persistent desire to and or have repeatedly tried to cut down or stop eating certain foods. My behavior with respect to foods and eating causes significant distress. So if any of these ring true for you about sugar, then you might just have sugar. And it's important to identify whether or not you're addicted, because then it lets you know how aggressive you need to be in countering that addiction. Now, some people just like sweets, and that's okay. If you just like sweets, but none of these other things apply to you, doesn't mean that you don't need to do a sugar detox. It just means that, maybe you don't have to be as aggressive. But I usually do recommend, whether or not you have these symptoms or not, that at some point you do some form of sugar detox, and I'll explain to you why in just a second. So like I told before, biochemistry drives behavior, not willpower. And so for so many of us, we are made to feel shamed because of the way that we eat, to make us feel like it's us, the problem is us. And what I like to explain to people, no, it's your chemistry. And once we can account for that, there's something we can actually do about that. So what drives us to eat? Hunger, reward, and stress. And I'll go over these really briefly. I'm not going to try to go too deep into the details here, but I do want you to understand a couple of things. Number one is hormones are part of your biochemistry. Hormones drive sugar addiction and overeating. And so essentially this graph is not to tell you, or this picture is not so that you can understand all of this, but there's a balance between two particular hormones, ghrelin and leptin, that let you know if you're hungry or if you are satiated or if you are full. And what happens is that when you start to overeat, and you triggered a hormonal imbalance because of sugar, this whole hormonal system gets out of whack. And so when I tell people, are your hormones balanced? Or if you have a hormone imbalance, what will end up happening is that even though you've eaten, you still feel hungry. And that's what this graph or this picture shows, is that this hormonal balance can get out of balance when you have a history of eating too much sugar. The other part that I said drives it is the reward pathway, or this sense of reward. This is because just like with cocaine or other substances of abuse, tobacco, alcohol, cocaine, heroin, sugar acts on the same part of the brain as all of these drugs of abuse. And what happens whenever you eat sugar, you actually stimulate the part of the brain that says, hey, this is pleasurable. I really enjoy this. And then it sends that signal all throughout the brain, and it says, hey, remember the last time you felt stressed? Remember what you did? You ate sugar. And if you eat sugar, then I can relax you again. So it's just like with any other drug of abuse, that it's working on the brain, and then it moves even further into the brain, and it affects your decision making. So now you go and you say, hey, I'm only going to have one chip. But then you eat 2, and then 3 chips, and then 4 chips, or 1 cookie, and then 2 cookies, or 3 cookies, or 1 piece of bread, then 2 pieces of bread. Even though you have no desire cognitively in your own mind, you don't want to eat this much, but your decision making is impaired because of this process. And so the reason, one of the interesting things about this is that, you know, we are really this huge experiment in America. We call the standard American diet, or the SAD diet. It's just a failed experiment. We've increased the amount of sugar that we're all exposed to. And as a result, we're seeing grave consequences to that. And, you know, it doesn't even seem to make sense, you know, that we would not be doing anything, you know, as a society to actually improve this really bad experiment. So let me explain that a little bit more. So let's talk about this idea of sugar. Is all sugar bad? No, it isn't. It's the dose that makes the toxin. And I talk about this a lot because a lot of people are saying, well, you know, I eat healthy sugars. I don't eat bad sugars, or, you know, sugar is really not that harmful. And sugar in and of itself is not harmful, but the amount that we're getting it in. And that's why we call it the SAD experiment, because what we're doing is, over the course of the last 100 years, we've steadily increased the amount of sugar that people are getting to the point that it's causing harm. And so if you think about what we typically, humans are typically supposed to, the amount of sugar we're typically supposed to get, it's about 15 grams a day. So if you think about fruits and vegetables and you're just eating off the land, that's how we were eating over 100 years ago, right? Natural consumption of sugar. So that answers it's part of the question of, you know, how about fruits? Well, if you're only eating fruits and vegetables, then there isn't a problem, because you're not going to get very high amounts. And then after World War II here in America, our consumption went up because of industrialization. So you're able to process foods more, and now you're able to put sugar in things that typically wouldn't have sugar in them. And then around the 70s and 80s, there was the onset of high fructose corn syrup. And this really, this changed the way we look at sugar in America, because it's really cheap and you can put it in anything. It's a liquid, and you can put it in, you know, cookies, you can put it in tomato sauce, you can put it in meat, right? What's honey cured ham, right? Why do we need sweet ham? But you can put it in just about anything. So our consumption went from 15 grams to 24 grams to now 37 grams. And then by the time you get to the 90s, you think, okay, so I'm going to have a glass of orange juice for breakfast. I'm going to have a latte, and then I'm going to have a Coke in the afternoon. And then I'm going to have a cocktail after work. And then I'm going to have another Coke when I'm having my dinner. And then I'm going to have a beer in the evening. And you think about all throughout the day, you're getting all of this sugar that isn't coming from fruit or natural sources. It's coming from all of these extra sources. And so by the time you get to today, the average teen is getting about 72 to 80 grams a day. So really the problem with sugar isn't sugar in and of itself, it is the amount that we're getting. And at 72 grams a day, we're at toxic levels. And one of the things I just like to point out here is, if you think about just the natural consumption of sugar, when you think about where do you find sugar in the environment, all the places you typically find sugar is pretty hard to get. You know, sugar cane, to get sugar out of sugar cane, I mean, you've got to eat a lot of sugar cane. You've got to chew and bite and do all of these things. You have to go to, honey is where bees are. I mean, you've really got to get to sugar. And one of the things that we've done in our society right now, we've made sugar so accessible, right? So you go to the grocery store and 80% of all of the products in the grocery store have added sugar. Now, here's the problem. This isn't normal for us, right? This is a normal thing. You go to the grocery store, 80% of the products there have sugar in them. And so it's almost impossible to get away from high sugar. And so if you think about what you eat all day, then the normal diet, or the SAD diet, the standard American diet, is a disease diet. So if you're wondering, why do people get sick? Why do people gain weight? Why is it that people develop cancer? Why is it that we have diabetes at high rates? It's because, why is this naturally happening? It's because our natural or standard way of eating is a disease diet. You will inevitably get sick if you eat the way everybody else is eating. Okay. And it's not just obesity. It's not just diabetes. It's a ton of other diseases that are affected by the way that we eat. Heart attacks, strokes, high cholesterol, Alzheimer's, gout, right? But the thing that most people come to me for is the top one, which is obesity, right? It's people want to lose weight. They're addicted to sugar. They feel like they're out of control. And the reason why sugar leads to fat is it's this cycle. You eat sugar, you eat foods that are high in sugar. It stimulates insulin, which is a hormone. That hormone, insulin, is actually the fat storage hormone. So it causes you to store fat. That insulin also disrupts that leptin ghrelin I talked about. And then you think that you're starving, so you eat more. And then you eat more foods that stimulate insulin. You have more fat storage. You have more hormone imbalances. And then you eat more sugar. And it's this cycle that leads to obesity and continued weight gain. But this process also leads to inflammation. So when you think about brain fog or fatigue at mid-afternoon, all of these symptoms related to sugar. And so I wanted to show you guys, there's this nice image I like to go over. I don't think it's going to work here, but I'm going to try my best. So you guys bear with me. So I just like to show this just to make the point that it's not that sugar in and of itself is bad, but the dose is bad and it has ramifications. And so this is just a chart looking at the United States from 1994 all the way to 2022. I think I have a graph. And it basically is looking at the prevalence, or how many people have met the criteria for obesity and diabetes over that time period. And I'm going to go through it really quickly. And the idea here is I want you to pay attention to the colors. So this is the graph. The one on the left is the one for weight or obesity, and the one on the right is for diabetes. And you'll notice that right now you have some light yellow and then some dark yellow and then some orangish colors. Basically, the differences in the colors say the percentage or the amount of people in the United States who might either have diabetes or obesity. And at this time in 1994, the dark orange is 18 to 20% of the population. And you only see that in two states. And in the diabetes realm, the darkest orange says 6 to 7% of the population had diabetes at this time. What I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to how the colors change from year to year. So this is 1995. You see there are more dark oranges on the left, and you even have a red there. Red signifies 22 to 26% of the population for obesity. And as we keep going, you'll see there's more color change. There's color change on both sides, diabetes and obesity, 1998, 1999. And what you're noticing here is that the rate of obesity and diabetes is steadily increasing over the years. So we get to the 2000s and we've added new colors. We've got greater than 26% of the population with diabetes and greater than 9%, with obesity, and greater than 9% with diabetes. Again, we're just watching the color change from 2004, 2006, 2007, 2008. You can see now more than half the population has greater than 26% obesity, and about a quarter of the population in 2009 had greater than 9% of diabetes. 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031, 2032, 2033, 2034, 2035, 2036, 2037, 2038, 2039, 2040, 2041, 2042, 2043, 2044, 2045, 2046, 2047, 2048, 2049, 2050, 2051, 2052, 2053, 2054, 2055, 2056, 2057, 2058, 2059, 2060, 2061, 2062, 2063, 2064, 2065, 2066, 2067, 2068, 2069, 2070, 2071, 2072, 2073, 2074, 2075, 2076, 2077, 2078, 2079, 2080, 2081, 2082, 2083, 2084, 2085, 2086, 2087, 2088, 2089, 2090, 2091, 2092, 2093, 2094, 2095, 2096, 2097, 2098, 2099, 2000, 2001, 20 Now, the reason I'm showing you this is really so that you can understand the impact of our current standard American diet on our health and our weight. And so this is just sort of a summary from 1994 to 2015. Now, at that point, after actually 2011, they changed the way they did it. So I'm going to show you a few other graphs of just obesity, because I don't want to leave you hanging wondering, well, what happened after 2015? So here in this graph, you'll see they changed the colors, but basically now we started adding new colors. And the reason is because we have a greater percentage of people who have obesity. And so the highest color in 2016, 35 to 40% of the population that in these southern states and up here in what's that, West Virginia. So 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, we've added a new color that's greater than 45% of the population. All the way up to 2022. And so you can see now, if we keep going on this trajectory, if we don't do anything, then obviously this number is going to continue to rise. And that's because most people are following a standard American diet. They're doing what everybody else is doing. So let's talk about why you guys came here. So how do you beat sugar addiction and using a functional medicine approach? And I specifically say that because there are lots of ways to change your diet. There are lots of ways to change your the way you eat, and a lot of them aren't sustainable. So really what we do in functional medicine is we take a holistic approach. We look not just at what you're eating, but we look at the factors that drive your eating habits, that biochemistry that I was talking about. It's not just about telling you what not to do, but really explaining to you what is going to be helpful for your body in totality. And so I typically start with the sugar detox. And the reason I do this is because what I want people to do is I want to reset. I want to get us back to a place where you are feeling and consuming foods the way that we did when without toxic levels of sugar. And we can only do that if we are very systematic about it, because our population is so overburdened by sugar. So what is a sugar detox? It's a a week sugar reset. It's essentially allowing our bodies and our brains to reset. We're resetting the way our brain responds to sugar, which is what I showed you guys before, that picture of the brain and what happens when you release those chemicals in the brain that stimulate you to want more pleasure. We call that the reward system. It reprograms your taste buds. So many of us are just so used to having high sugar in our diets that we think that everything we need to eat has to have sugar in it. So we want to reprogram our bodies to appreciate the normal sweetness of foods. We balance our metabolic hormones. I talked about that, the insulin, the leptin, the ghrelin. We want to eliminate addictive cravings. So that those first questions that I asked you at the beginning, eating when you don't want to eat, not feeling full, consistently trying to lose, to try to stop eating sugar, but continually failing to do so. You want to get rid of those sort of addictive behaviors, and then reestablishing a new normal. I tell all of my clients and all of my patients, you don't want to be normal. Not in America. You do not want to eat what everybody else is eating. That is a recipe for disease. And if you're interested in having disease, then you keep doing what you're doing. But if you're interested in feeling your best, looking your best, and aging your best, then you obviously have got to change some things. And so I want to support you to do that. So how do you do a sugar detox? So what I tell people that I do is I prescribe food, right? So rather than not thinking of it as a diet, but a food prescription. And the difference between a diet and a food prescription is that with a food prescription, what we're doing is we are deciding what sorts of foods you need to eat to balance your hormones and the chemicals in your body. It's a short period of time that you follow a food prescription, and then you're given guidance afterwards. So the 3-week food prescription balances your metabolic hormones, it resets your palate, all of the things I just described. Then we also need to enhance your nutrition, because oftentimes some of the things that cause food cravings has to do with nutrient deficiency. So we have to make sure that we're getting enough nutrients to help balance. So it's not just what you're taking away, it's what you're putting in. You want to balance your microbiome. I didn't talk a lot about this, but your microbiome is also something that determines how you eat. So let me just take a moment, since I forgot to add a slide here about that. So your microbiome are the bacteria in your intestines. And those bacteria are determined, the types of bacteria that are there are determined by the foods that you eat. So if you eat foods that are high in sugar, processed foods, then the bacteria in your intestines are bacteria that thrive off of those foods. If you were to change the bacteria in your gut to enjoy other types of food, then that's what your body will crave. So I tell people all the time, it's the bacteria that are causing you to crave. They're the ones saying, send me more, send me more. And they're also the reason why when you try to stop eating, you get that feeling of anxiety or depression or remorse. It's because those bacteria start to release chemicals, literally hormones, neurologic hormones that cause depression, anxiety, overwhelm. Those bacteria determine that. You have more signals from the bacteria in your gut to your brain than your brain to your gut. So the bacteria are hugely important. So if you're trying to change the way you're eating, but you don't focus on the microbiome, then you're doing yourself a disservice. And then you want to learn to eat for hormone balance. So after you finish the sugar detox, then we teach you how to transition into a diet that's more sustainable. But at this point, because you've reset your brain, because you've reset your microbiome, because you've reset your palate, you no longer have to fight cravings. You no longer have your body that's craving foods uncontrollably. Now, does that mean you're never going to want to have a cake? Absolutely not. Does it mean you're never going to be able to have a piece of cake? Absolutely not. The point is that now you're in control of what you eat. You can walk into a place and say, I would like a slice of cake without feeling like you can't turn it down. And I've definitely seen this over and over again when people try to deprive themselves for a long time and they think they can't ever have these foods again. That's not true, but we do need to reset the biochemistry first. Okay, and then the sugar detox helps you navigate your sugar in your environment. So the other thing that really has to happen if you're going to change the way that you're eating for the long term is that you've got to figure out what foods are dangerous? What foods should I be avoiding? Which foods are okay for me to eat? And how can I eat them in a way that won't throw me back off the track, right? And because our environment is so sugar laden, really having support and to help figure that out is invaluable. And then it helps you understand how sugar affects your body. And it's not actually just sugar, but all foods. So one of the things that is highlighted in this program is the reintroduction. So what that allows you to do is to figure out how certain foods affect your body. And that, again, is super important because it allows you to be in control of how you feel. So if you eat certain foods and then at noon, you're fatigued and tired and have brain fog, well, if you know which foods cause that problem, then you can avoid those foods if you don't want to feel that way. So there are definitely ways to give you back control of your own body so you don't feel like you're a victim. So some of the benefits of a sugar detox: permanent weight loss. Again, if you're interested in weight loss, then you really want to reprogram your biochemistry first, and then allow your body to reset. Regain control over what you crave and eat. Enjoy sweets without being controlled by them. Again, this is not about giving up sweets forever, but it is about being able to choose when we eat sweets. And not just sweets. I didn't really point out that it's not just cookies and cakes, but it's also breads and rice and pasta and all the things that can cause that hormone balance that I described. So increased energy. Again, because that's a hormonal thing. Oftentimes energy depletion has to do with hormones, particularly metabolic hormones. And then eliminate medication. So if you're a person who's pre-diabetic or diabetic, if you're on high blood pressure medications, if you're on high cholesterol medications, this is a great program. When you go to your doctor and they're like, change the way you eat, but they don't give you any guidance. That's what this program is to help you do, to give you the guidance, the support, and the strategies so that you can change the way you're eating and decrease or eliminate your medications. And then, like I said, again, increased focus. Again, focus is another thing that is hugely impacted by the foods that you eat, particularly sugar. So again, some further details about Cocaine in My Cookies, the program. It's a 3-week online course. So you get complete instruction from me about how to go through this process. You are not left to figure this out on your own. I tell you exactly what to eat, what to avoid, when to add things back in, how to prep your kitchen, how to prep your family, how to, all the details that a lot of people don't ever tell you, that, how to actually effectively achieve your goals. There is a supplement that's included in this program, and that is because it's for continued support of your hormones during this program. And then we take a holistic approach. So we're not just talking about food in everything that I do. It doesn't matter if it's this program, if you're a medical patient of mine, it's never just one thing, right? To get to the root cause of why you feel the way you feel, we have to address this in a holistic manner. So we talk about sleep, we talk about stress. All of these things impact how you respond to food. And then there's also a workbook. So I try to make this program as turnkey as possible. Did I skip health coaching sessions? I try to make this program as turnkey as possible with a workbook that helps you, do everything step by step. And I think I skipped health coaching, but there's also health coaching associated with this. So you can meet with the health coach so that if you have questions, so that you can troubleshoot. So again, that you're not left to figure things out by at your own devices. And so, like I said, we address stress, sleep, self-care, journaling, all of those sorts of things to optimize this process. So that is Cocaine in My Cookies. I did it right under 30 minutes. I'm super proud of myself. So if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. Everyone who knows me knows I love to answer a question if you are interested in the program, you have questions about the program. If you're not interested in the program, but you're wondering, hey, can I do this on my own? How can I do this on my own? You can absolutely do this on your own. I usually tell people that if you've tried in the past and you not succeeded, then, the question is how long do you want to continue to have issues and not get the support when the support is there. And so I really did try to create a program that would be turnkey and easy to achieve. And even if this program is not the right one for you, I encourage you to follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook. I usually have free programs all the time. Try my 5-pound challenge. If you're interested in something more intense, you can try the Black Women's Guide to Health, Hormones, and Longevity. That's another program that I have, but that one won't be running until January. So if you're interested in that, then you can do that one in January. And if you're interested in working with me as a patient, I'm still going to ask you to do one of these programs, either Cocaine in My Cookies or the Black Women's Guide, because that is the foundation of everything we do in my practice. So how do you cut carbs and stay full without eating more meat? So I'm just making sure I understand the question. So how do you stay full? So one of the things that a lot of people don't recognize is that their bodies will adjust very quickly to whatever it is that you do. And so once you start to change the composition of the foods that you eat, you change the timing of when you eat, you focus on your sleep, you focus on your stress, you focus on all of these other things, you actually you'll find that you're not as hungry because you balance those hormones, right? So now your leptin and your ghrelin are talking appropriately to each other. Your insulin levels are coming down. So hunger isn't so much of an issue. Now, the issue of meat is that, so yes, we balance by eating more vegetables, not eating more meat. So one of the things that we are very much underfed in our vegetables and the fiber and all of those sorts of things. And that's part of regaining nutrients into your system. So once you increase your nutrients, you balance your hormones, you'll find that you're not as hungry and you don't have to eat more meat. Now, it is important that we have enough protein. And so in cases of people who are vegetarian or vegan, the program can be adjusted to so that you're not eating meat at all. Or if you're a person who only eats fish, we can adjust in that way. But the other thing I'll say about carbs is that during the program, we do decrease your carbs significantly, but we're really focusing on the types of carbs you're getting. And then also, as you transition out of the program, we really teach you how to incorporate other forms of carbs that aren't heavily processed, that drive insulin and drive hormones that cause hunger and weight gain and inflammation. So I hope that answered your question. But really, we compensate by vegetables, not necessarily by meat. And again, one of the things I often tell people is this as well. The way that I teach people how to eat in general, in any program I do, is exactly the way that we eat the way that people have been eating for all of history. So oftentimes, because this is so normal, the way that we eat right now with all of this processed food and all of the refined, added sugar foods, these foods were not available for our great-grandparents. They just weren't. Like, there were no Pop-Tarts when my grandmother was growing up, or your great-grandmother was growing up, right? And so oftentimes people think that the way that I'm teaching people how to eat is so drastic, or am I going to get sick if I eat this way? No, this is how people have been eating for millennia. We just have to recognize that we've got to make some of those changes. We don't have to change everything about the way that we're eating, but we do have to get back to some of these basics so that we don't go down that disease pathway that I described. All right. Any other questions? How can we minimize our chances of sugar relapse? That's a great question. So it's really a matter of, from my experience is this: once you know how to do better, once you feel better, once your experience during this program actually changes the way your body starts to function, feel, and look, oftentimes it makes it so much easier for you to maintain because you're actually getting a direct benefit from the program. It's almost an immediate benefit. But the other thing is that one of the reasons I feel like people have relapses is, number one, they haven't really learned anything differently about the reasons why how foods affect their body. This is very personalized to you. And so learning what works for you may be different than what works for somebody else. And so in most situations, people are being told, this is what works for you. And you're like, I'm having this experience and this is not what's happening for me. And so really, that's one of the reasons why the health coaching is a vital part of this program, is so that as you're going through the experience, we are able to work with you in understanding what's actually happening in your body so that you can continue to maintain those behaviors even afterwards. The other thing is that we have to simplify eating, right? And so a lot of programs don't give you the tools on how to navigate the world around you. And so it's easy to relapse because you've created a situation where you're vulnerable. And so one of the things that I really did include in this program are strategies to make you less vulnerable, right? So there are certain behaviors that you can create that actually help you sustain this for the long term. It continues some of our conveniences, right? Because that's what most of us eat. We eat out of convenience, what's closest to us. We need to be able to create behaviors that support us so that we're not just going out into the world and anything goes, right? You want to make sure that you have the skills and the strategies to be able to eat in a way that is beneficial to you over the long haul. How important is it to rally family around the process? Absolutely. So there's a whole entire section on this. This is why it's so important. And me and Shatila, my health coach, we actually talked about this in one of the lives. If you guys haven't shown up for any of our lives on Tuesdays, we do a live every Tuesday on Instagram at 6 o'clock. But we actually talk about the impact of family. So there are two points I'll bring up here. Number one is you do want to see if somebody will do it with you, right? So if you have a spouse, if you live with someone, ask them to do the program with you, right? There's no harm in them doing it along with you. But if they're not willing to, then there are strategies that I talk about in the program that help you at least get them on board with what you're doing to support you. But the other side of this is this: even if nobody in your family decides to do this program with you, they will benefit. So once you start to change the way that you eat, it will inevitably affect the people around you. And this is no more important than when we talk about our kids. And so when I started doing this work, it was really because it was after I had kids and I wanted to ensure that I wasn't feeding them junk. So once you learn the skills, I have a whole talk I give in my other course that says, now once you know the things that are in this program that are evidence-based, science-based, not made up, they're not TikTok tweets. This is years of medical knowledge and science. Once you know these things, and you are no longer guessing about what you're supposed to be eating and not eating. Once you have that knowledge, it transforms how you shop. It transforms what foods you bring into the house. It transforms decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis, and everyone benefits from that. So as far as rallying family, I have a whole section on that. But I just want to make that point that this program is designed to be transformative, not just for you, but also for your family. Any other questions before I let you guys go? I really appreciate you guys showing up. If you are interested, let me put this up really quickly one more time. You can go to the blackwomensguide.com/cocaine in my cookies if you're interested in signing up. And the link is in my Instagram bio as well. And I can be found at Dr. Nicole Peoples on Instagram. And if you have any other questions, you can also check me out on my website if you just want to know more about me. So that's Dr. Nicole Peoples, DrNicolePeoples.com, drnicolepeoples.com. And it will tell you all about me and my programs and what I do. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the program. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.